my name is Naghmeh Abedini. I'm the wife of imprisoned American Iranian pastor Saeed Abedini, who has been sentenced to 8 years in prison in Iran for his Christian faith. He has served almost 2 years in that prison. I want to thank the Voice of Iranian Christians for doing this interview and making his plight known to more people. Saeed, I met Saeed in 2002 when I came from the US to Iran. I was actually born and raised in Iran until I was 9 years old. We moved to the United States because of the war with Iran and Iraq. Lived there, and in 2001 I went to Iran because of my Christian faith, and I wanted to share what I had found in Jesus and in Christ to my fellow cousins and people I'd known when I was a child. In 2002, I met Saeed. He was born and raised in Iran. He had converted to Christianity as well in 2000, 2 years before he met me, through a vision of Jesus. And he was, at that time, going to Bible school under a government-approved building church in central Tehran. It was Central Assembly of God. That church was approved by the government, was monitored by the government, and through that church, they started a Bible school that Saeed attended. And part of the assignment of the Bible school was to start house churches, gatherings of Christians to read the Bible and pray. And the Iranian government at that time was under President Khatami, who was more moderate, who was allowing these house church gatherings, peaceful gatherings of Christians. And so it was allowed. In 2005, Saeed and I left Iran because Iran got a new president named Ahmadinejad. He started persecuting religious minorities greatly. We were under constant fear and threats. So Saeed and I left Iran in 2005. In 2009, when Iran was facing re-elections and was going through its own political turmoil, Saeed and I thought that Iran would not pay as much attention or cared as much about religious minorities as in trying to uproot it, as Ahmadinejad had put it years earlier. So we went back in 2009 to Iran. We were there only a few weeks as a vacation. And as we were coming back, Saeed was arrested. He was not put in prison, but he was put under house arrest with his parents. He was interrogated for 2 months, and he was told that as long as he discontinued with the house church movement, that the Iranian government would encourage him to return to Iran and do a humanitarian effort. And so Saeed and the Iranian government, meaning the intelligence police, came with an agreement that Saeed would be able to freely move back and forth between the US and Iran and start an orphanage as long as he did not pursue the house church activities, which Saeed agreed to. He followed through with his promise. He obeyed the law of the land, as his personal beliefs, his beliefs as a Christian say that we should obey the law of the land and respect those that God has put in authority. So Saeed worked with the Iranian government. He traveled more than 9 times to Iran between the year 2009 to 2012. The kids and I actually traveled back with him in 2011, thinking that the orphanage was near completion, and we wanted our kids to be there when the orphans were being accepted into the orphanage. Unfortunately, the orphanage took longer. The kids and I returned to the US early 2012. We were there October of 2011 until February of 2012. Saeed returned with us. He went back in June of 2012, hoping to be in Iran only a few weeks, and that he would come back to the US, and that the few weeks in Iran the orphanage would be complete. Unfortunately, that was not the case. I got a call from him in July of 2012 saying that his passport was taken. They were not allowing him to leave the country. We did not know why. He kept calling the passport office, asking what's going on. He was told that towards the end of September, he was told that he would be getting a call that would tell him where to go for interrogations or questioning, and then they would let him go. So Saeed was waiting for that phone call when, in September 26th of 2012, 5 Revolutionary Guards raided the house he was staying at with his parents in Iran and took him in a most horrific way. His family still has nightmares of the event. We didn't know where he was for about a week. We didn't know if he was alive. After a week, we found out he was in Evin prison. He was in solitary confinement. And in January of 2013, after spending months in prison and being tortured for his Christian faith, he was told if he returns to Islam, he would be freed. If he stays a Christian, he would get long sentences and stay in prison for a long time. Saeed refused to deny his faith and stayed. And in 2013, January of 2013, he was sentenced to 8 years in prison for undermining the national security of Iran. And the reason for that, they said, was peaceful gatherings of Christians, which had happened between the year 2000 to 2005, where there was a different president in Iran allowing that. So they couldn't say he broke any law recently or did anything, actually. And actually, in Iranian law, peaceful gatherings of religious minorities is allowed. So they basically said he hadn't broken any law. They didn't say he was a spy. They didn't say anything. And so Iran has been holding Saeed illegally for almost 2 years and beating him. My husband has internal bleedings. Because of those beatings, recently he was moved to a hospital, and we're trying to treat him and hopefully get him released to our family. He was in Evin prison, but there was a time where recently, a few months ago, he was moved to Rajai Shah prison, but he was moved to the murder and rapist ward where people were on death row. He was continually under death threats. He had knives on him, threatening him, people taking his food, had lice all over him, and just suffering horribly from the internal bleeding, fainting. And only after outcry from the world was he moved to the political ward of Rajai Shah prison, which is an exile prison, worse than Evin prison. And recently he was moved to a hospital. It's been a difficult journey for the kids and I. Our kids have celebrated 2 birthdays, going on 3 birthdays without him. And they miss their dad. They cry for him. They play videos of him to try to remember how daddy looks like. And I've been traveling for almost 2 years, nonstop, speaking before the U.S. Congress, the Foreign Relations Committee, Tom Lantos Committee, and speaking before the United Nations, speaking before the Geneva Summit for Human Rights and Democracy on human rights issues in Iran. Currently traveling in Europe, speaking to different governments in Europe about my husband, and hoping that, you know, from the outside, from Europe, US, and the world, we can let the Iranian government know that in addition to the nuclear, the world cares about human rights issues in Iran. And we're looking to see improvements, including the freedom of my husband. They can show signs that they're stepping forward, they're making improvements to their human rights issue. Unfortunately, since the new president of Iran, Mr. Rouhani, has become president, there hasn't been much change. If not, things have gotten worse with the human rights issues in Iran. So my hope is that I can, as I travel, I can bring awareness to my husband's imprisonment and shed light on the human rights issues in Iran, and ask for your support. Every voice counts. Everyone speaking out and saying this is an issue that matters, counts, and we can make a difference in lives of many, many people, including my family, of people, prisoners of conscience, who are suffering and spending decades in prison simply because they believe differently, they're of a different faith, they think differently than the Iranian government.
How can the society be of help to you and your family and for Pastor Saeed to be free from prison?
What the people across the world can do for my husband, for human rights in general, especially countries like Iran being one of the top violators of human rights issue. You can contact your local government officials, whoever they are, representatives, and let them know that this is an issue that matters to you, that discussion with Iran on human rights issues is an important issue to discuss. And my husband, Saeed Abedini, who's become a face, has become an example of many, many people suffering because of their faith, because of their belief. And so contacting your local government officials. There's a website, beheardproject.com, beheardproject.com. You can sign petitions asking for Saeed's release. There's many different sites that have petitions for prisoners of conscience, but this is specifically related to my husband. And I hope that you can see me and hear my story and the story of two hurting kids, my daughter who's 7 and my son Jacob who's 6. And you can see that there's many faces to these prisoners of conscience in Iran. And I hope you will act, call your government officials, sign petitions, write, do what you can to make your voice be heard to your officials. But then they will in return make Iran know that this is an important issue. Human rights is an important issue, and they should release Saeed and other prisoners immediately.
Thank you, Mrs. Abedini, for your time and for taking this interview with us. May your faith in the Lord be strengthened and God bless you. Bye.